going to talk about the voucher program. After public housing, the next major program that was implemented was one in which a voucher for rent would be given to families, which would give families choice of where to live, mobility, and the capability of moving into high opportunity areas. This is a very different kind of program than public housing, sometimes referred to as the Housing Choice Voucher Program or the Section 8 Voucher Program. The Housing Voucher Program began in 1974. It was part of the Community Development Act. There are two different kinds of vouchers. There are project-based vouchers, meaning that a voucher is attached to a particular apartment unit and families move in and out of that. And there are tenant-based vouchers. The overwhelming majority of vouchers are the tenant-based variety. And those are ones where a family has that voucher and they can take it to apartments that will accept them. Let's talk a little bit about some basic math, and I'll try to explain how housing vouchers work. So let's say you have a voucher and you want to rent a one-bedroom apartment that rents for $1,500 a month, but you can't afford $1,500 a month. Let's say you can only afford $300 a month. So the resident pays $300 a month, and what happens is that the housing authority pays the difference between what the resident can afford and what the amount of the rent is that the landlord is charging. So why does the tenant only pay $300 in this situation? Because how much rent the resident pays is based on his or her monthly income. So in this situation, the resident makes $1,000 a month. The rent that the tenant pays is 30% of their monthly income. So this brings us to a really key concept, that of being rent burdened. If you're rent burdened, you're paying more than 30% of your monthly income on housing, and that's just not a good situation for anybody to be in. HUD and lots of other folks have done a lot of analysis to find out how much money should people pay as a percentage of their monthly income on rent or housing. And they've found that if you pay more than 30% of your monthly income on housing, you're going to have problems because you need enough money for food, for medical expenses, for transportation, and for other necessities and living expenses. Unfortunately, today, 20.8 million renter households in the United States are rent burdened. And this is a problem. And it can result in homelessness. If you are having to pay so much for rent that you can't afford food, something's got to give, right? And what happens is as rents continue to rise, we're seeing more and more people becoming homeless. And guess what? We have very clear data that shows all over the United States, the areas where homelessness is increasing are the areas where housing is incredibly expensive. So there's a total of 44.1 million total renter households in the United States. 20.8 million of them, or 47.2%, are rent burdened. So there's a concept that gets thrown around all the time in the affordable housing world called area median income. HUD publishes area median income, or AMI, figures throughout the United States for cities, counties, and metropolitan areas. So let's look at area median incomes for the city of Houston, Texas. Area median income is calculated based on family or household size. 100% AMI for an individual is $65,300 a year. For a family of four, it's $93,200. I've included 60% AMI figures and 30% AMI figures on the same slide for a really important reason. Most of the tax credit developments in the country require that those who rent are at least 60% or below area median income. 30% of area median income is considered very low income. And a lot of the public housing that we talked about in an earlier module contained high concentrations of people at the 30% area median income level. 5.3 million people in the United States benefit from the voucher program. 11% of voucher recipients are elderly, 23% of voucher recipients are disabled, and 70% of voucher recipients are families with children. So this program benefits a tremendous number of individuals. Even with this program, 7 out of 10 low-income American households pay too much for rent and don't receive a voucher or other federal assistance due to limited funding. One of the most important principles in affordable housing, in my opinion, is to be laser focused on the people that we serve. It's so easy to get lost in the sea of acronyms and complex programs that we sometimes forget about why we're doing this. We do this to bless the lives of people. I try to think about, how many people does this really impact, and how can I visualize and get a sense of how important this is for people? So 2.2 million children live in households that are supported by a voucher. I'm a baseball fan. I like the Astros. Non-Astro fans don't hate me for it. But whether you do or you don't, I still love the Astros. The Astro Stadium holds about 40,000 people. So 2.2 million children is enough to fill 55 Astro stadiums of children. That is a lot of young people who benefit from not having parents who are rent burdened. So this is really important. While the Section 8 voucher program works really well in many respects, there's some huge challenges. Number one is that landlords do not have to accept a Section 8 voucher, and many of them just decide they don't want to be involved in the program, and so they don't participate. The other big challenge is that there are not nearly enough vouchers for people who need them, and the wait lists are really long. At the City of Houston Housing Authority, they have about 18,000 vouchers that are available. They renew their waiting list about every 2 or 3 years, and when they open up that waiting list, in about 48 hours, they will get about 30,000 people who sign up for a Section 8 voucher, and they have to cut off the waiting list. So there just aren't enough vouchers available to help the families that need them. So in the next section, we're going to talk about what I think is the most successful affordable housing program that has ever been developed by the U.S. government, and that's the Low-Income Housing Tax Credit Program.